Andes Mountains, majestic, breathtaking, and home to a darkness few could imagine. Here, Pedro Alonso López, a name whispered with fear and disgust, carved a path of unimaginable cruelty. He wasn't a mythical creature, but a man, driven by a hunger so monstrous it defied human understanding. Over 300 young girls, their lives brutally extinguished, bore witness to his depravity. The monster of the Andes, they called him, his name synonymous with terror, his crimes a chilling testament to the darkness lurking within the human soul. López preyed on the vulnerable, the lost, the forgotten. Young girls, often living on the fringes of society, selling trinkets, their families struggling for survival, became his targets. He approached with a disarming smile, promising kindness, offering sweets or trinkets, luring them away with the cunning of a predator. These innocent souls, starved for affection and security, walked willingly into his trap, unaware of the nightmare that awaited them. Their trust, their innocence, meant nothing to López. They were merely pawns in his twisted game of death. 1980, Ecuador. A mass grave, its gruesome contents revealing the unthinkable. The bodies of young girls, their remains bearing the chilling signature of a monster. The evidence led to the capture of Pedro Alonso López. What followed sent shockwaves across the globe. López, with a chilling calmness, confessed. Not to a handful of murders, but to over 300. He described his methods, his insatiable hunger, his chilling lack of remorse. His words, devoid of empathy, painted a portrait of a mind consumed by darkness. During interrogations, López remained an enigma. He oscillated between moments of lucidity, recounting his crimes with chilling precision, and bouts of what seemed like madness. He laughed, he taunted, he reveled in the horror he inflicted. He seemed to draw pleasure from recounting his gruesome acts, his eyes gleaming with a disturbing light. Was it an act, a calculated attempt to feign insanity? Or was this the true face of evil, staring back at the world with a terrifying grin? A twisted system. Justice denied. Fury ignited. The courtroom was filled with an air of anticipation, a sense of hope that justice would finally be served. The gavel came down, and the judge made his ruling. But what followed was a shock that reverberated far beyond the walls of the courthouse. The world held its breath, waiting for justice to be served. But the unimaginable happened. Outside the courthouse, an anxious crowd had gathered, their faces etched with worry and anticipation. They had come seeking closure, a sense of justice for the heinous crimes that had shattered their lives. The tension was palpable, a collective holding of breath as they awaited the verdict. López, deemed sane enough to stand trial, was found guilty and sentenced to 16 years, the maximum sentence in Ecuador at the time. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of the sentence hanging heavy in the air. 16 years. A number that seemed so small in the face of the enormity of the crime. The defendant, standing in handcuffs, showed no remorse, his expression cold and unfeeling. The world erupted in outrage. The news spread like wildfire, igniting a fury that could not be contained. Protesters took to the streets, their voices rising in a chorus of anger and disbelief. They held signs demanding justice, their faces contorted with rage. The sentence was seen as a gross miscarriage of justice, a slap on the wrist for a crime that had claimed over 300 lives. 16 years for over 300 lives extinguished? The question echoed through the streets, a rallying cry for those who felt betrayed by the justice system. The protesters marched with a fierce determination, their placards bearing messages of justice and accountability. The emotional crowd reacted with tears and shouts, their pain and frustration laid bare for the world to see. It was a slap in the face of justice, a betrayal of the victims and their families. Inside the courtroom, the families of the victims were overcome with grief and anger. They had hoped for a sentence that would reflect the gravity of the crime, but instead, they were left with a sense of profound injustice. Their cries of anguish filled the room, a heartbreaking testament to their loss. The outcry highlighted a chilling reality: the inadequacies of the justice system, particularly in Latin America, to deal with crimes of such magnitude. The debate spilled over into the media, with television programs and news outlets dissecting the failures of the legal system. Experts and commentators weighed in, discussing the need for reform and the challenges of delivering justice in a system fraught with limitations. The people, too, engaged in heated discussions, their voices rising in a collective demand for change. The case of López became a symbol of a broken system, a rallying point for those who sought to overhaul the mechanisms of justice and ensure that such a travesty would never happen again. The shadow of doubt, a monster's freedom, a continent's fear. In 1994, after serving a meager 14 years, López was released for good behavior. He vanished into thin air, his whereabouts unknown. The fear was palpable. Had a monster been unleashed? Was he out there continuing his reign of terror? The uncertainty fueled nightmares, the lack of closure a festering wound on the collective psyche of a continent. Lopez's release became a chilling symbol of a justice system ill-equipped to deal with the darkest depths of human depravity. Echoes of horror. The Lopez case and Latin American justice. The Lopez case is not just a story. It is a haunting echo that reverberates through the corridors of Latin American justice systems. It is a tale that has left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of an entire region. The Lopez case sent shockwaves through Latin America's justice systems. It was a case that gripped the attention of millions, a case that was discussed in homes, in schools, and in the highest echelons of government. The media coverage was relentless, with every new development being broadcasted to an eager and horrified public. It forced a long overdue conversation about sentencing guidelines, the treatment of violent criminals, and the protection of the vulnerable. Lawmakers, judges, and legal experts were compelled to confront the inadequacies of the existing system. The case highlighted the urgent need for reforms that would ensure that justice was not just a word, but a reality for all. The outcry, the fear, the anger, ignited a demand for reform. Across the continent, people took to the streets, their voices rising in unison, demanding change. The protests were a powerful reminder that the people would no longer tolerate a system that failed to protect them. The banners and signs carried messages of hope, of justice, and of a better future. Countries began revisiting their penal codes, re-evaluating their approach to criminal justice. Legal scholars pored over dusty tomes, searching for solutions. Lawmakers engaged in heated debates, each one determined to find a way to prevent another Lopez case. The government buildings, once symbols of bureaucracy, became beacons of hope as new laws were drafted and old ones were revised. The specter of Lopez hung heavy, a chilling reminder of the need for a system that truly served justice, that protected the innocent, and held the guilty accountable for their crimes. The case became a symbol, a rallying cry for those who believed in the power of justice. It was a stark reminder that the fight for a fair and just system is never over, and that vigilance is always required to ensure that the scales of justice remain balanced. Beyond comprehension, the depths of human depravity. How does one even begin to fathom the mind of a Pedro Alonso López? What dark forces coalesce within a human being to create such a monster? Was it a product of his horrific childhood, marred by abuse and abandonment? Or was it something more sinister, a darkness that dwelled within him from birth? These questions continue to haunt criminologists, psychologists, and anyone who dares to delve into the darkest recesses of the human psyche. The monster's legacy, a chilling reminder. Pedro Alonso López may be a ghost, his whereabouts unknown, but his legacy lives on. He stands as a chilling reminder of the vulnerability of innocence, the fragility of life, the very real monsters that walk among us. He is a stark warning that evil can wear many faces, that it can lurk in the shadows, preying on the unsuspecting. His story is a chilling testament to the capacity for darkness that resides within the human heart. An open wound. The unanswered questions of Pedro Alonso López. The name Pedro Alonso López sends shivers down the spine of many, a name synonymous with fear and mystery. Known as the Monster of the Andes, López's story is one of the most chilling and perplexing in the annals of criminal history. The case of Pedro Alonso López remains an open wound. For the families of his victims, the pain is a daily reality, a constant reminder of the loved ones they lost. Each day, they grapple with the haunting memories and the unanswered questions that loom over their lives. The lack of closure, the uncertainty surrounding his whereabouts, continues to haunt the families of the victims. Will he ever resurface? The fear that he might still be out there, lurking in the shadows, is a nightmare that never ends. The families hold on to hope, but the uncertainty gnaws at their souls. Will justice ever be truly served? The legal system has its limitations, and in the case of López, those limitations are glaring. The questions about his escape, his potential whereabouts, and whether he has claimed more victims since his disappearance are questions that demand answers. The courtroom may have seen the end of his trial, but for the families, the trial continues every single day. These questions linger, a constant reminder of the darkness that visited the Andes, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of so many. The beautiful yet treacherous landscape of the Andes holds secrets that may never be uncovered. The old newspaper clippings tell a story of horror, but they also tell a story of resilience and the human spirit's unyielding quest for justice. The search for answers continues, a testament to the enduring power of hope, the unwavering pursuit of justice, and the refusal to let darkness extinguish the light. The investigators, the families, and the communities affected by Lopez's actions are united in their quest. They search the forests, they examine every clue, and they pray together, drawing strength from one another. Their journey is not just about finding Lopez, it's about healing, about ensuring that the memories of the victims are honored, and about making sure that such darkness never descends upon their lives again. The story of Pedro Alonso López is far from over, and as long as there are unanswered questions, the search for truth will continue.